Tim Petrowich here of Dateline Marion, and our guest, as always, Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And now we're in week 10, which is the week that a lot of teams don't get. But now for the last 7 years in a row, Marion's got a week 10. And first of all, talk about that and how good it feels to be able to get a team in the playoffs and keep that tradition going.
It's the best feeling. It's I shared with the team that my first playoff team was in 1990 as head coach at Sparta. And I remember that feeling of making the playoffs at Sparta as a 26-year-old head coach. And 21 years later or so, I'm still enjoying that same feeling. The feeling is exactly the same as it was in 1990. And it never grows old, never get tired of it, never changes. It's the same excitement and I don't know, it's just a great feeling. It's what you put all that work in. It's to have an opportunity to compete with a select group of teams for a state championship, and it's a privilege to be here.
Let's talk about the regular season finale, a 34-28 win over the Heron Tigers. And again, for now the 5th time this season, so more than half of your games, your team has fallen behind by 2 touchdowns early in the game. And for the 4th time of those 5, you've been able to rally and come back and win that game. The only time you didn't was the season opener. So I guess maybe they're getting better at that falling behind and catching up.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to get better at, but they are good at it. And you know, it's a strange thing. We've been talking since the ball game ended with a lot of different people, including talking to you, and about how to explain it. And I'm not sure I have an answer for that, how to explain it. They're resilient. They battle back in the face of what looks like horrible odds. We've fallen behind against very good football teams and able to find a way to win. Once they start playing at that level, they're a very good football team. The downside is, as coach, you always find those things we could get better at. Is why can't we do that for 4 quarters, and why does it take getting down to do that? And so, you know, we're proud of them. They're the greatest comeback team maybe in school history. But you know, you worry about, you know, not letting that catch up to you at some point in time. And certainly the playoffs is a time where you don't want to find yourself behind 2 or 3 scores of the ball game.
Well, and you know, Heron is a very good, one of those very good teams you talked about, and Antoine Davis, who had those 2 long touchdown runs early, very outstanding football player, and a lot of teams have been shell-shocked by him early in a game like that, and you know, it's again, it speaks to the resilience of this team that happens, you know, almost like the 20 unanswered 20 quick points by Centralia earlier in the year, that they can find a way to make the adjustments, stop those plays, and go on and come back and score points and win the game.
Well, exactly. I mean, this has happened to a very explosive Heron team and a very explosive Centralia team and a very good Althoff team, which is another playoff team. All 3 of these teams are playoff teams, and so that's what's remarkable about it for our kids to do this against quality opponents and to be able to make the adjustments in their game. I mean, I know the coaching staff has worked very hard to make halftime adjustments and so forth, but a lot of times the schemes are very similar to what we did in the first half. It's the level of play that our players go to in the second half that has allowed us to make these comebacks, and kids stepping up and different kids making plays, and I think the difference between these games that we've won, the game with Carbonate, which we lost, wasn't really about whether we got out ahead or fell behind. It's about players making plays. We didn't make plays against Carbondale. We've made plays in these other ball games, and our playmakers or whoever has stepped up and become playmakers in these games, and to us that's been the big difference.
Shaquille Ivy's in that window now, that 3 to 5 weeks it was talked about. But whether or not he comes back, how do you get Henry Jones out of the lineup?
You don't.
580 yards in the last 4 games. 580 yards for the season, but probably all but about 30 or 40 of those in the last 4 games since he took over. 212 against Heron last week. He's just running like Coach Karn said after the game, running like a man possessed.
Yeah, you don't get him out. You'd have to find a way to get him in the backfield together, and we can do that. I mean, it's I know that Shaquille will play this week. My feeling is at this time, as the time of this interview, is that Shaquille would look to play in the second round if we can beat a very good Triad team. So maybe another week of healing. Anything can change. He's doing some exercises, some therapy, and we have to let Shaquille go when he's comfortable, when he's ready, and no one can speak for him or how his leg feels. Only he knows that, and so at this time we're moving on as if we're going with the lineup from last week, and if he ends up being able to play, even play some, that'll be an added bonus.
Yeah, I mean, because Henry's just really done a great job of filling that role.
He really has. You know, the offensive line continues to get better, and Henry stepped in, and we're getting more plays from other people like Justin and Jay and some others, and John Evans and Matt making some plays by scrambling for some yardage, and I think which put him over positive rushing yards for the year. And as a quarterback, sometimes it's hard to do when you have to count sacks, but it's been a real team effort. But certainly the person that's been the driving force behind this offensive resurgence in the absence of Shaquille is Henry Jones.
Well, and something that you mentioned, touched on, we didn't really talk about this last week, is with Justin having a little bit of the flu last week and being sick, he didn't play much in the first half.
Right.
When he came back in the second half, he was not only able to impact the team offensively with a couple of nice runs, but especially on defense.
He did, and that's a big part of it, and another part, another component in that offensive and defensive, scheme is having him healthy and him out there playing for us.
A couple other notes. Daniel Gooch got hurt again last week. What's his status for this week?
Danny will probably be out this week. He re-aggravated. He'll be out this week for sure.
All right. And I think what Triad wants to do is something they've done year in and year. They want to run the ball. They've got about 3,300 yards in total offense, and 3,100 of that's come on the ground. And 184 yards passing so far this season. So you've got to be able to stop that run, and it's tough because their quarterback's a 1,000-yard rusher, their fullback's a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, you're right. There's no secret. There's no mystery behind it. This is what they're going to do. And I heard someone talking, I may have mentioned before, about tendencies. Too many tendencies that opponents can pick up on and scheme against you. And I heard someone say that every great team has a lot of tendencies. They do what they do. And even if you know it's coming, they pride themselves in the execution and making you stop it. To me, Triad's a lot like that. I'm sure they have lots of tendencies that teams will find them, but it's trying to stop what they do. Much of what they do on execution, and staff have a long tradition of success, and they've been a dominant force in that conference and a playoff team year in and year out. And he knows what he's good at. His kids execute it well, and throwing the ball, it's not what they do. They want to run it, and they run it well. A lot of option teams don't throw the ball a lot. They don't. But make no mistake, they won a lot of games doing that.
There's a knock on them this year a little bit about the weakness of their schedule, and their teams that they played against only had 25 wins this year. But as you go back and look at these teams, I think people may say that a little bit about them each year, and every time your two teams have played, it's been a very well-played, hard-fought football game, and they've been in the second and third round of the playoffs in each of these years that they've been in. So apparently, regardless of the strength of their schedule, apparently they're doing something right up there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is always a factor. You look at the strength of a team's schedule along with their record, but bottom line, when you put a film in, you're looking at the quality of play, the fundamentals they use, the execution of the game plan that they've implemented, and the schemes that they run, and you can tell from the moment you put the film in, this is a well-coached football team and very physically strong football team, good size, good strength. You can tell they spend a lot of time in the off season dedicated to that weight room, and so this Coach Basler, every great coach has a signature on his team, and this team certainly has his signature on it. Every team I've coached against has always had that signature, a big physical style, tough. And I'm sure that that's exactly what we're going to get on Saturday.
If everything's equal, everyone executes well, plays reasonably mistake-free football, doesn't do a lot of the goofy things. Obviously, Triad has a home field advantage this time.
Right.
Maybe Marion has a little bit of an advantage on the speed.
Yeah, I would say that we would, if we have an advantage, it would be the speed side of things. I've in the early stages of developing our game plan, and certainly we are looking at the fact, of course, we throw the ball better. Hopefully that'll be an advantage. We throw it more. But at the same time, quickness sometimes is a key element. Speed is a key element. Strength is a key element. Looking at all those factors, it's going to grade out somewhere, but I still think it's going to be an even match. Every time we've played them, it's been right down to the wire. We broke a long run late last year to finally seal it. So it's going to be a close ball game. I can almost guarantee you that. It's at their place, which we've not played there before. So it's exciting to get to play in a new environment. I'm sure they're glad to have us at home for the first time, and ought to be a great matchup.
Last year when you played this team, one of the things you talked about was the fact that you really had to play good assignment defense.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a lot of the same kids back on the defensive side of the ball, led by your defensive captain and Alex Long, but a lot of the same kids are playing again on that defense. So that's going to maybe help a little bit in getting your defense ready for this team.
Well, playing, I'm sure they've got some advantages playing our offense again, and we've got an advantage playing their offense again, certainly just a year apart. But, it's assignment football. I mean, option football is assignment football. You got to make sure you don't have a breakdown. You got to make the tackles. When your assignment's the quarterback, you can't miss that tackle. And option football is very much designed that way to force you into a mistake or a missed tackle. And they're pretty good at finding mismatches and making that happen.
What about, it's another 2-hour trip, a little more than 2 hours.
Right.
Again, we talk constantly about the way this team travels, not only the team itself, but the fan base that comes with it.
Yeah.
And with a playoff night, I can't really envision a whole lot different.
No, I think the fans are excited. The start time is going to allow for easy travel there, and I know, just speaking to people in the first 3 or 4 days since the announcement, I know that people are talking about going, and a big crowd are going to travel with us, and that is a huge factor, having our Wildcat Nation behind us and in big support. And I know that Triad will have a big crowd. They always do. I've not played at that facility. I hear it's a nice facility to play a ball game at. So, it's an exciting time of year. It's great to be a part of it. We want to have success now in what we call our second season, and the more fans we can get there, the better.
Don't want to look ahead. Obviously, we're not going to talk about who the Wildcats might play.
Right.
If they should win this game on Saturday night. But one thing I'm looking forward to, I think you are too, is seeing some blue lines on the field at Marion High School.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I told the kids we're not going to look ahead to who we're playing, but we are going to look ahead to where we're going to play. And as a motivating factor, we're looking at the fact that a win brings us back home for another ball game, and that's a big incentive. We love playing home. We've been a good home team as well, and blue lines mean good things. At Marion High School, it means you're playing late in the season, and so you're right, we're looking forward to that.
Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. The Wildcats play in the first round of the Class 5A playoffs against Triad up in Troy, and that game starts at 6 o'clock on Saturday night. For Dateline Marion, this is Tim Petrowich.